All right, today we're tackling a huge question, one that has massive implications for anyone thinking about enlisting and for veterans who are already out. Is joining the military actually a good career move? We're going to see what the data has to say about where you'll end up, both with your paycheck and your education. So let's just get right to it. The big question is, in the long run, is serving in the military a good deal for your future? I mean, it's often sold as a ticket to opportunity, right? But what do the numbers really show? We're not going to rely on stories or anecdotes here. We're going straight to the data. We're diving deep into a massive report from the RAND Corporation. They tracked thousands of service members for almost 20 years to find out what actually happens to their careers and their college plans after they take off the uniform. Okay, so the very first thing that jumps out from all this data is this really fascinating pattern. It's almost like a V shape that seems to define the veteran experience right after service. Let's call it the story of the dip and the recovery. So, right off the bat, the data shows a bit of a financial shock. Those first few years after leaving the service, they can be pretty tough. On average, veterans see a noticeable dip in what they're earning compared to civilians of the same age. It's a challenging but really common first step. But, and this is a huge but, that's not where the story ends. That's just the bottom of the V. The RAND study found that over the long haul, veterans don't just catch up, they often blow past their civilian peers, earning significantly more later in their careers. So it really looks like a short-term hit for a long-term gain. Now, obviously, not every veteran has the exact same journey. So you have to ask, right? How do the little details of your service, like how long you were in and what your job was, how did those things change the financial outcome?
And the answer is, yeah, it matters a lot. How long you serve turns out to be absolutely critical. The data shows a massive difference. Vets who get out in under 2 years often face long-term earnings losses. But if you stick it out for 4 to 12 years, the whole picture flips. You're looking at an earnings premium of 20 to 30%. And for the career folks, the financial upside is just huge.
And it's not just about the time you put in, it's also about what you did while you were in. The gains you see later on really vary depending on your military job or your MOS. Combat arms roles, they see a solid 23% long-term gain. But the biggest payoff goes to veterans from technical fields. Think healthcare, communications, intelligence. They're seeing a premium of around 35%. It's pretty clear that skills you can easily take to the civilian world pay off the most. Okay, so that's the money side of things. But what about education? Well, believe it or not, we see a remarkably similar dip in recovery story playing out here too. It's a story of a delay, but one that's followed by success. I mean, just look at this chart. The trade-off is, wow, it's so clear. That sharp V shape you're seeing, that represents a big delay in going to college. While their friends are heading off to campus right after high school, new enlistees are, serving the country. But here we go again, just like with the money. A delay doesn't mean it's over. Far from it. Over an 18-year time frame, the data shows that veterans don't just catch up. They actually become more likely to earn a college degree than their peers who never served. And if we zoom in a little bit, we can see how the length of service plays a role here too. See that blue line? That's people who served 5 to 7 years. They close that education gap the fastest after they get out. It kind of suggests they're super motivated to use those GI Bill benefits they earned. All right, so we've established that your personal choices, your job, how long you serve, they really matter. But what about the stuff you can't control? Let's look at some of the bigger external factors that can shape a veteran's path. This next point is huge. I mean, this is one of the most critical findings in the whole report. You don't really get to pick when your contract ends, which means you have almost no control over what the economy looks like when you get out. And the data is crystal clear. Leaving the military during a recession can drag your earnings down for as long as 7 years. It's a pretty powerful reminder that sometimes timing really is everything. So the military knows this transition can be tough, right? They've actually created programs to try and help out. A great example is the Army's PayYS program. The idea is really simple. You sign up, and in return, you're guaranteed a job interview with a partner company when you leave. It's designed to make that transition just a little bit smoother. Okay, so you've got this program, PACE. The goal seems pretty straightforward. Help vets get jobs and maybe skip that earnings dip we talked about. But this is where the data threw a real curveball. The RAND analysis actually found that participating in PACE was linked to slightly lower earnings after service. And you can see it right here in this chart.
That solid line, the one that shows the effect on earnings, it stays consistently below 0. Now, to be fair, the researchers say there might be other things going on. Maybe the recruits who think they'll have a harder time finding a job are the ones who sign up for the program. Still, it's a pretty wild result that just guaranteeing an interview didn't seem to be enough to boost those paychecks.
Phew. Okay, that was a lot. We've gone through earnings curves, service details, education paths, the economy, you name it. So let's try to boil this all down. What are the big takeaways here? So when you put it all together, what's the real story? Well, it seems military service is a series of trade-offs. You're trading an initial hit to your paycheck for a potentially much bigger one down the road. You're trading getting your degree right away for being more likely to finish it later. Your choices about your job and how long you serve are huge. And then there's that wild card you just can't control, the economy you walk into when you finally hang up the uniform. So in the end, this data doesn't give a simple yes or no answer. It paints a picture of a really complex path, but one that is often incredibly rewarding. The challenges are real, but so are the long-term benefits. And it kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. With all these different pieces in play, what do you think is the single most important factor for making that transition from military to civilian life a success?